Hey, hello, and welcome everyone to Healthy Waves, the live group podcast. It's a new episode, and it's a new format as well for sure, and where we explore the diverse and the impactful topics with the help of experts from around the world. So, I'm your host Avik, and each episode brings you the insightful discussions on the personal development, mental wellness, health, and lots more. So, together we will delve deep into the wisdom and the experiences of our guests, expert guests, offering you the practical advice and the inspiration to enhance your life. So, why to wait? Let's ride the waves of knowledge and the transformation. But before we do that, I would quickly introduce you to all of our exceptional guests. We'll start with Robert J. Hunt. So, dear listeners, like Robert is also known as the accountability guy. So he is the co-author. I mean, he is also co-authoring the book "Nobody Cares Until You Do." So he is a seasoned business owner in the Dallas with, I mean, uh, and has been an executive coach since 2013 and running CEO groups in DFW. So, with a passion for helping the leaders reach their goals by removing the obstacles that hinder their best performance, Robert brings a wealth of experience and the wisdom to our discussion today for sure. You will definitely love it and get ready for an engaging and fun conversation with him. Also, on the other hand, we have Holly Potter. So, I just want to mention like she is an international speaker and creator of 11 startup companies. So she is a 50-time best-selling author, seasoned philanthropist, and the true survivor. So after a kind of harrowing 70-day battle with COVID-19, she emerged with unwavering determination, I would say. So becoming a beacon of resilience. So she leads a nonprofit dedicated to aiding the long COVID community and continues to inspire the countless lives with her infectious joy and the uplifting spirit. So, Holly's latest venture, a tech SaaS company in the retreat industry, showcases her commitment to the wellness and making a positive impact. So, we'll also dive deep into her incredible journey and the insight shortly. We'll quickly introduce you to Dr. Emily Wilson. She is a naturopathic doctor, acupuncturist, author, and mother. So, congratulations. And specializing in women's cardiometabolic and hormone health, she faced her own challenges after a traumatic childbirth in late 2022. So, which led her to write the book Post UST, the essential guide to creating your uh, postpartum self care plan in the pregnancy. So her mission is very clear: is to empower the new parents to have the best postpartum experience possible. So with her expertise with, I mean, and in the personal journey, Dr. Wilson offers invaluable guidance for expecting parents. So we are thrilled to have her today with us, and we'll have a lots of discussion today in our topic. So next we have Shara. So, Sarah is a consultant in the defense contracting industry, survivor, author, and advocate for the victims of intimate partner violence, IPV. So, her memoir details her journey through a destructive marriage, PTSD, and her path to finding her voice and helping others. So passionate about financial and economic abuse awareness. Her story is definitely a testament to the resilience and the strength, I would say. So, uh, and today she's here to share her insights and the experiences, offering hope and the guidance for those facing those similar kind of challenges. So we are honored to have her on the show today, and we'll definitely have a lots more discussion on this. We'll quickly also introduce you to Rachel Fredman. So Rachel is MSW PWERYT 500 and the founder of Somatic Coach School. So she helps leaders individuals with the high functioning anxiety break free through the somatic healing, and trains therapists, coaches, and the healers to integrate these skills into their practice. So, with over like 25 years in the wellness industry, her expertise in the yoga, somatics, and the mindset transformation has changed countless lives. So, her journey from high functioning anxiety to self empowerment is truly, truly inspiring, I would say. So, we'll definitely dive into the power of somatics with Rachel very soon. And also, we have Logan Afford. So, he is Alaskan, husband, father of four, and the former sex addict. So uh, his journey from addiction to recovery through faith and God's intervention is nothing short of inspiring, or I would say miraculous. So now leading the recovery group with his wife, his mission is to share his story and help others overcome similar kind of struggles. So his transformation from a life of sexual depravity to one of the fulfillment and purpose is definitely the testament to the resilience and the faith. So we are excited to hear his powerful story as well. So with this, I know it's a long introduction, but it really matters because it's always important to understand how they have gone through and their experiences, and because of their experiences and how they have made uh, those times so that they are here right now. And it's a learning, I would say. So it's required. And definitely welcome to the show again, everyone.
Thank you. And Logan wins for having the largest drinking container on the show today.
You're not wrong.
This little puny one looks just like a joke. I shouldn't even have. Oh, and my son comes through with this bad boy.
There we go.
It's a man.
Lovely, that's great. So as we already mentioned, like we'll be talking about the daily habits, discipline, accountability, personal development, mental wellness. So we'll quickly start with, so this is for all of you. I mean, so what according to you was the defining moment that uh, set you on your current path in your career or the personal journey? Like, so we'll start with Rachel.
Sure. Yeah. So, what was the defining moment? I can't say there was a defining moment. I think for me, it's been more of a collection of moments over time. Um, and it's the compounding effect of even when you don't feel like doing something, you do it anyway. It's one of the greatest things that I think yoga has taught me is the art of discipline, and that it's actually easier in a lot of ways to hit that snooze button and to skip all the things that that will fulfill you, but you got to get to the place. And I don't know, some people call it rock bottom, right? I know in the addiction world, but it's that place where you start to actually realize that yes, the easier thing in that moment is hit snooze, but it's not actually the easier thing, because what actually supports me is, for me, for example, is getting up every morning, meditating, doing some form of movement for my body, and then doing what I call self-coaching. Some people call it journaling, thought work, whatever you want to call it. And I think for me, I would say over time, what I can look back and say defining moments were is realizing it didn't have to be all long, right? Like it could be 5 minutes of each thing. If that's all I had that morning, I've got, well, not, they're not small kids anymore, but when I started this journey about 20 years ago, my son just turned 20, they were little, and very needy. Now, unfortunately, I wish they were needy, as they don't seem to need me anymore. But it's, yeah, I think, like, I don't know if there's a defining moment. I think that, there's moments that add up that then impact the journey, and then we fall out of it, we get back in it, and that's the work, right? Is being kind with yourself as you fall off the bandwagon and not beating yourself up. And that's a lot of the work I do, is helping unshame the shame that we might carry around not following through for ourselves.
Lovely, lovely.
Do we get to ask questions along this?
Exactly.
That was a question. So I guess we do. Do you think that women have more of a potential to feel guilty about stuff than men will?
Personally, I think women are more vocal about it, but I don't necessarily think women have. I think women hold just as much shame as men. I don't work with as many men, but I have been married to more than one man. And I can say that I just think women tend to be more vocal and verbal about it. But I think men tend to bottle it up more. And I think it's also why certain, we can call them diseases or diseases, are more prevalent in certain populations, because what we're holding on to.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, though.
No, that makes sense.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay. So I'll come to Holly.
Yeah. The defining moment for me is very clear. When I was in my coma in 2021, one of my 70-day stay, I really prayed to die. If this is how it's going to be, I'm miserable. This is not fun. I like fun. And if you're not going to get me better, God's my higher power for whatever it is for anybody else. But my prayer was, if you're not going to get me better, get me out of here. And I had many out-of-body experiences. I had a near-death experience and a spiritual transformational experience. So that defining moment was this actual spiritual transformational experience, because I was told a couple things to start the nonprofit. I was told on my SaaS company also to not partner with this company that was backed by a billionaire at the time. And I was like, am I even going to live, you know? And that's when I had this experience where I knew at that moment that I would live. And that's all I needed to know. And the mantra said was fight. And I don't even like the word fight, but it just told me that, okay, I got it. This is it. And that was that defining moment when I knew it was going to be a long journey, but I'd get there. And eventually what I was told to do by God in my coma, I did. Or I'm doing, I should say. I did, and I'm doing.
Awesome. That's cool.
That's great. So, Robert, you want to say?
Yeah, there's been all kinds of defining moments in my life throughout my journey. I think the thing I would focus on today would be when I decided that I needed to sell my house and get out of debt and start over. We had allowed ourselves to get so heavy into debt. It was affecting our joy, our marriage. We were angry at God. We were angry at each other. It was just a really tough time. And we had tried for years to fix the problem, and it just got worse every year. And so we just decided in 2019 that if we couldn't fix it this year, we'll sell the house and start over. And all year long, I'm like, okay, God, pull this out of your bag and let's fix these problems. I owed $90,000 in debt, and there was no way, even if I had a rocking year, I was going to pay off $90,000 in debt. And I got COVID. Not COVID. I got, what's that word? Vertigo. I was going to say dementia, but that's clear. I already have that. I had vertigo for 16 days, and I was so sick. And I remember halfway through it going, I'm going to have vertigo the rest of my life, and I owe $90,000. We're going to live on the street. This is horrible. Well, God took it away after the 16th day, and that's when I turned to my beautiful wife, Kathy, and I said, that's it. We got to do it. We got to pull the trigger now. And so we put our house on the market and sold our house and moved into this rental where we live now. And a month later, when we got the money, we paid off everything we owed, and we were debt free. And the peace that I got in my life by removing the thing that was holding me back, and by not being a victim anymore, but owning my journey and owning my responsibility, it freed me up to look at all other areas of my life. And that was the turning point for me in having a life of accountability, where I looked at, hey, you're fat. hey, your marriage isn't working good. Hey, you're not being the dad you want to be. You're not even being the friend you want to be. And I started looking at everything, and I owned my journey. And that discipline and that mindset has carried with me since 2020.
Nice.
Lovely. Great. Great. So I'll come to Sarah.
Yeah. I think like everyone else, there's been multiple defining moments that have kind of led me to where I am right now. Um, I mean, from the mental health aspect, right? I was very shortly out of getting out of my relationship. Um, had been homeless for a little while. Finally got myself into a place to live, and then my mental health just started declining. And waking up in the middle of the night one night, just ready to just end it all, and remembering that my employer passed out an EAP flyer the day before and calling
Wow.
a crisis line
Look at that.
and getting into therapy, which was where, for the first time, I ever heard really the term domestic violence. When I started talking and telling my story, I really didn't even recognize that, even though, there was both physical and psychological abuse involved, but not really recognizing that, he was anything but mean. And so that was a big moment for me that like, okay, so I didn't do things wrong to bring myself to this place. Um, and that just kept me going. I was in the middle of grad school at the time. I was ready to drop out and head home. And, I was like, nope, you can do this. Pull the bootstraps up and keep going. So I did. And then that kind of led me to the career I'm in now, in defense contracting. And, and then I read an article that someone posted on LinkedIn, and it was all about my ex husband. Unfortunately, he did die by suicide, and he had committed some crimes beforehand. And this person wrote this article, and um, long story short, it was time to take back my story. I was tired of allowing other people to tell the narrative of who he was. I just kind of left and hid. I was in hiding for years. And I was now free and I could tell the story and take back the narrative. And so that's when I wrote the book Stronger Than That, to just kind of share my story. And, I'm also a faith based person. And so I've just kind of followed the instincts, that inner voice that's like, okay, should I write the book? Yes, you should. Okay, I wrote the book. Now what do I do? And um, still trying to understand and reconcile, right? Like, what was the purpose of what I survived for 6 years, what I went through, why did that happen? Um, and just continuing to follow and walk through the doors as they opened really has been um, what served me really well. So I ended up hearing, um, comfort those with the comfort by which you were comforted. And I was like, that's it. That's my purpose. I survived something, and now, and just like you all are doing, right? We're using the steps and the things that we learned to comfort ourselves and to get to the other side to give that to other people, and hopefully they don't have to go through exactly what we did. Maybe we can save them some time, or something like that. So now I'm, involved in a lot of advocacy work, and financial and economic abuse was a very big part of my story. So, I volunteer time to work with women, teaching finances, teaching people to recover from financial and economic abuse. And yeah, that's really what's led me to where I am right now.
It's awesome.
No, that's okay. Great. Emily.
So for me, on one hand, I do have a very specific moment of when everything changed for me. And on the other hand, I can echo what Rachel was talking about with change being a series of moments and steps and choices in our lives. But my daughter was born on October 6th, 2022 at 2:12 in the afternoon. I'll never forget it, even though I was like somewhere else. We'd home birth, and moments after she was born, I started to hemorrhage. And I was completely in love with this creature that had just arrived on the planet. And everybody in the room was so focused on me, right? And I remember just being so elated that she was here and that I was able to connect with her, and being also aware that everyone else in the room was so worried that I was going to die that day.
Hmm.
And I'm so grateful that the paramedics, they arrived so quickly. I was loaded up into the ambulance at 2:37. So she was born at 2:12, 2:37. I was being put into the ambulance. So super quick turnaround, thank God. And they were able to get the bleeding stopped at the hospital. And the reason I share that story and say it's kind of, that was definitely a defining moment for me, is that, you know, I came from this experience of having had a beautiful pregnancy. And, you know, when I was a kid and an adolescent, I definitely went through my own struggles with depression and anxiety big time. I learned some unhealthy ways of dealing with them. Then I became a naturopathic doctor and I learned some healthier ways of dealing with them. And so then I got pregnant when I was 42, and I had this really wonderful pregnancy. And so I was in a way completely unprepared for this experience of postpartum. And for me, thank goodness, my experience with my physical health was okay. I was able to recover relatively well from the anemia and the hemorrhage. But what absolutely floored me was the depression and the anxiety that just came back full force. But I didn't know I didn't know I was supposed to pack my toolbox before I gave birth. And so I felt really empty because I was just trying to figure out how to be a mom. And even though I had an amazing community of family around me, I didn't know how to contact them or reach out to them or ask for help or ask for support. And so I felt myself just really, really isolating and not even recognizing the signs that were there that signaled pretty serious mental health struggles, pretty serious depression, and pretty serious anxiety. And thank God I had happened to reschedule my primary care appointment. I was supposed to see my primary care doctor the week before my daughter was born. And I, for whatever reason, rescheduled 6 weeks after her birth, or 6 months after her birth. And at that time, they happened to do a depression assessment, and I scored really, really high. And they flagged it, and they absolutely had a conversation with me. And that's when I realized, like, this isn't how I'm supposed to feel. This isn't just my life now. I'm not just a shell of myself. I actually have, you know, serious imbalances that I need to address. And I have zero medication stigma. I think that the best tool for the individual is the best tool and the tool that should be used, because what we need to do is we need to save lives first and foremost. And for me as a naturopathic doctor, I really felt called to try to improve my mental health from a diet and lifestyle based perspective, using nutraceuticals, supplements, herbal therapies, diet and lifestyle as much as possible before trying medication. And so that was my, again, to kind of echo what Rachel was talking about, you know, the moments and the choices that I made. You know, it wasn't like in a second I made a choice to take medication. No, I had to take a very different path, one which would require me to every single day be self-accountable, be accountable for how I felt, make decisions about what I was and was not going to put into my body, and how I was going to treat myself. So that was my transformational moment and the beginning of a journey that I am definitely still on and will be on, I think, for the rest of my life.
That's cool.
Thank you. That was
So
wild.
Logan,
Yeah. So a couple moments stand out for me. The first moment, I mean, I think about it in terms of the series of landmarks that God put in my life and in my family's life. So after, I can't help but see sort of a mirror image as Sarah was sharing her story. It was almost exactly 6 years from the time that I first cheated on my wife before we were married, and spent several more years constantly being unfaithful, through pornography, through affairs, prostitutes, and completely had this double life and this whole system of living with just this incredibly destructive infrastructure. And at the same time, feeling completely trapped in that and feeling like I don't know a different way to live other than to be this terrible predator, this terrible dad and husband, and all of this. And so July of 2015, my wife did something that she'd never done before, and she gave me an ultimatum. And, you know, at that moment, it was the first time that I got that glimpse into, okay, if I don't make serious changes, I will for sure, not speculatively, I will for sure lose my wife and I will lose my kids. And that scared me. I'd already had completely given up hope of having a good life or anything like that. But if I could hang on to my wife and kids, I wanted to try. And so I did get into serious recovery almost a year later when I finally got sober, finally started to get traction, May 19th, 2016. But have been in active recovery since for the past 8+ years. And then the second moment, you know, the first several years in recovery was primarily focused on myself and getting healthy, you know, learning how to be a healthy person, how to interact with the world around me in a healthy way. And then, and there was a little bit of stagnation there. Like, okay, like I'm not acting out. I'm not, you know, doing the bad things, but there was a little bit of stagnation. And my mentor, who is, I mean, one of the most precious people on earth to me, he's like a dad to me. He's my best friend outside of my wife. He and his wife, who mentored my wife through sexual betrayal trauma, so incredibly special couple in our lives. They moved away, and we're up here in Alaska. When somebody moves from Alaska, it kind of feels like there's a death, because there's a very real chance that like you won't see that person again if they move away. You know, it's like kind of like living in a different country. And so they moved away, and when that happened, it was just this moment of realization, like, okay, number one, Rick, my mentor Rick, he can't be my conduit to recovery. He can't be my tether to recovery, to healthy living, to God, all of this. And then also, just from a practical standpoint, you know, there was this obvious gap of I needed to step in and now lead this recovery group that Rick had been leading, you know, these men. And then there was a man specifically that was entering the program just like I had done several years before. So then I went on to walk with him for the next 2+ years. And that was a huge shift, recognizing, okay, like God gave me recovery, and that has provided so much healing for myself. It's provided so much healing for my family. But this was this next shift of, okay, but I've got to seriously focus on who else can I give back to? How can I reach out to other men? And to be honest, just this year has been a whole other shift of that, in terms of going on podcasts and doing Instagram, just to try to give hope to anyone that might be in my shoes. Cause I will tell you, I mean, you know, for me as a young, you know, early mid-20s dad who had done the things I'd done for years, I knew other people had done those things. I didn't think that there was a human on earth who had done those things and experienced healing, who had been able to have their life transformed and to be able to be a dad and a husband who could look in the mirror and be okay with what they saw. So whatever I can do to try to give back, you know, to other men that might be in those shoes, that's my mission.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for your candor, Logan.
That's really great. So thanks everyone for sharing this. It's really important, and like there's a lot to learn. That is the main reason I was also mentioning while we started, that it's very important to understand and learn from the experiences. For me also, like quickly I will share, like that moment was kind of self-discovery, or kind of you can say vulnerability also, that not only set me for a new career path, but also it ignited me with a passion for helping others to lead a healthier, more fulfilling life, uh, push people for more, giving them more motivation. So it actually helped me. So it definitely taught me that uh, sometimes our greatest struggles can definitely paved the way for more those profound transformations. So it's really really important. It's very important, I believe. So thank you so much for sharing all your experiences. So also like so when you're talking about this thing, so it's also very important to understand like what are the daily habits or maybe the routines that you consider essential for your personal development, mental wellness. So what do you suggest? I mean, what do you say? So uh, we'll start with Robert.
Well, before you can chase any habits, you have to know why you want to have the habit. And we talk about that when the pain of where you are is worse than the pain of where you're going to go, you'll change. And Kathy and I, for years, thought, well, next year we'll get it figured out, and next year my business will take off, and next year I'll lose weight. Just whatever thing, you just kick it down the road. And we think no one else is suffering like this, and we feel weird about it. We don't want to own it. So that's why I was asking Rachel about how do guys see things versus women, and I think at some point when you decide that you want something bad enough, that you'll change. So I think the first step is just really to take some time and look at your life and say, what do I want it to look like? In the book, we put a satisfaction assessment because we want people to start right off the bat. What is your life? What is your business like? Are you satisfied? And if you're not, what do you want to do about it? But we don't take the time. We just kind of get used to it. It's like the frog in the water where it slowly is turned up and then it cooks to death in the water. And we bit by bit go, well, I only owe $2,000. Well, I only owe $10,000. Well, I only owe $50,000. And, it's just little bit by bit. So I think the first place is to really stop and evaluate, what does your life look like today? What do you wish it would look like? And what are you willing to do to get it there?
Yeah.
That's really lovely. Lovely. You're saying something, Logan. You're saying something.
Oh, I was just agreeing with what he said. I'm eating it up.
Great, lovely. So, Sarah, if you can say.
Yeah. So for me, writing and taking notes, journaling, however it happens, has always been really, really helpful to me. I received a PTSD diagnosis years ago, and I've always had these moments where anxiety hits, right? Something triggers something, and I don't necessarily know what in this moment is causing me anxiety or causing me to feel like, dread, like something's coming. And so when I started writing the book, I was able to reintegrate a lot of my disassociated memories from, the abuse. And I found that writing things down, and I did this even in grad school, right? Like I always took handwritten notes. Something about having a pen in your hand and physically writing just helped it like sink into my my cellular memory, right? Like my body absorbs it better. So for me, writing has been really, really helpful. It helps, bring up memories. I like to connect with, 3 physical things I'm feeling right now. 3 things that I see in my environment, 3 things that I'm feeling. And I don't know. I write everything down. I mean, like I've got like a notebook here and a notebook there. They're everywhere. So I'm always just writing down my thoughts. And, kind of what Robert was saying is, knowing where you're going, right? Like not just I want to feel better, but, how do you want to feel better? What's going to get you feeling better? And so I always have like lists and goals and things like that written down. So yeah, writing has been really helpful for me.
I like that term, disassociated memories. I've not heard that before. We just finished reading a book called Live No Lies, and it was talking about how there are disassociated lies that come at us. And I think there's disassociated memories. And that's a really cool, that's a cool word.
Yeah, I mean, it's really something your body does automatically, right? As a form of self-preservation and protection. things that I like in the moment, you're like, I will never forget that this happened. And then in the journey of writing my book, I worked with a writing coach, and I would write down a story and send it to her. And she would come back and ask me questions. And I would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just remembered something that happened that I, and that's a whole nother topic of conversation, because that led to imposter syndrome. Well, if I forgot it, did it really happen? The writing process was a crazy journey for me, but yeah. And then there is, I'm not, maybe one of the people who have a mental health background knows, but there is an actual form of therapy that I kind of self-discovered of writing down and reintegrating the memories, and then being able to process the trauma triggers. So I was able to realize, oh, it's because there's a dirty dish in the sink right now. And in my previous relationship, that meant punishment was coming. And so being able to be like, okay, that's what triggered it. Now let me talk about my therapist with it, and let's deal with this. Yeah. So.
Wow, Sarah, you're so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah, the body stores it. So if, for example, there's a dirty dish and you used to get yelled at or beaten for it, the body probably tensed up. So if you can access that experience in your body, that's a really powerful way. And then actually move it. It's a really powerful way to actually heal parts of ourselves that we, as you said, have disassociated from.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I love that you said that, because when I talk to people about PTSD, and, and they talk about trauma triggers, and people who maybe haven't experienced don't understand it, the example that I use is, if somebody comes over near you and they lift their hand above your head, your body instinctually ducks. Okay. There was no narrative process that your body went through. It didn't say hand above head, see the shadow, must duck, the hit is coming. Your body just instinctually protects you. And so that's an example of that kind of cellular memory, where once upon a time, probably when you were a toddler in the nursery, right? Like another kid came over and bonked you on the head, and your body ever since has just known, like, when that happens, I protect you and I do these things. And so being able to recognize that and help retrain your body that you're safe. I'm in charge now. I've got you. You're safe. Yeah.
Lovely. Great. So, Emily, want to share?
Sure. I would say for me that I have a bit of a morning ritual as far as like my non-negotiables, what makes me feel better on a day-to-day basis. And my every morning ritual, or maybe let's say like six mornings a week, realistically. But I will wake up early. I will do a journaling exercise, because I have found I just want to take a moment too and really honor your journey, Sarah, and thank you for sharing your experience, because I think that like how powerful it is that you could bring some conscious awareness to that, and now you can share it with other people. I think a lot of people are probably in a situation where they feel trapped, but they're not even conscious of it. And a simple act like writing to become more self-aware, I think, is so powerful. And so that's why I've kind of made a commitment to myself to engage in that every single morning, even if it's for 2 minutes. Sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 2. And then I do a quick meditation. And then I always try to move my body in the morning. Those are 3 non-negotiables, lots and lots of water. So maybe 4 non-negotiables. But this term has been in the forefront of my experience lately, metacognition. And I think that I'm using that journaling to just practice metacognition. If you're not familiar with it, basically it means becoming aware of what you're thinking about, or thinking about what you're thinking about. So if we can become aware of the thoughts that just kind of like live in our minds or pass through our minds, there's this potential for so much such increased self-awareness, almost like, that trauma trigger, right? Like we can have an instinctual reaction to something. It does not go through our conscious brain. It goes through that subconscious survival center, right? And to bring it to the conscious part of our brain provides so much self-awareness, so much, for me, richness, because I am somebody who, I love story, I love meaning, I love attributing meaning to things because it really helps me become more conscious about the decisions and the choices I'm going to make on a daily basis. And sometimes it's really hard. you know, um, I have my frustrations, my triggers. I have a full-time job, I have a full-time business, I have a full-time toddler now, and I'm also a single mom. So I do feel a bit overwhelmed pretty much every day, at least once or twice or 10 times I have that experience. But it's about, okay, this is my life and I have a choice about how I'm going to respond to this. And at the end of the day, I know I want to be an amazing mom. I know I want to be an amazing person, business person, but an amazing human for other people, and just try and help as many people as possible. And I don't get to be that person and also have that instinctual, maybe less than ideal reaction. So the self-reflection piece, again, everything for me.
I like that.
Okay. Okay. So, Logan, what do you think?
Yeah, the piece for me, that it's not a routine in the sense of, or it's not a routine, I guess, because it's not something that I do at the same moment or time of day, but it's something that's part of my infrastructure multiple times every day is, so accountability. Robert, love it. It's like a hot buzzword, but what does it actually mean, right? Because it can be kind of vague and nebulous, I think, sometimes the way people use the word accountability. So one of the ways, just a very tangible, concrete example of what it looks like for me, because accountability has been, the most crucial piece from a practical perspective to how I've been able to, go through recovery and rewire my brain and change my habits and change how I interact with the world around me. And I don't ever want to be in a place where I don't have hardcore accountability. And and I'm always sometimes I'll explain to people, especially outside of recovery, it's not a question do I need it? Do I need it now as much as it's that's not the question. The question is, do I want to be in a place where I don't have people that know all my stuff, that can speak into my life, that can hold up a mirror? And no, I don't ever want to be in a place in my life where I don't have at least a couple guys that know my story in all its depths, that know my current struggles and exactly what my stressors are, exactly what my triggers are, all that stuff, and have full permission to speak into my life. And it's almost never giving me direct advice on Logan, you need to do this, you need to do that. Sometimes they have permission to give me advice, right? But it's holding up a mirror. It's asking questions, there's two guys in particular that I text these two other mentors daily. We, all three of us, dump stuff into this text thread. And, sometimes it's a temptation or something that's really on the nose for recovery. But most of it's, hey, my septic's backing up and I'm frustrated. I'm stressed. My kid is he just fought with his brother and I yelled at him, or I want to yell, or I got in an argument with Carrie, just life stress, right? But just this dumping ground where it's in a controlled environment, and I can get feedback, and and they know what I'm going through, and they have, again, full permission to, poke me in the gut and call me out if need be, love me, encourage me, all of that. But it's part of this daily infrastructure. It scares the crap out of me, the idea that if I were to ever be in a spot where I didn't have that, not necessarily that, I would go back to my addiction, but it's what kind of a dad would I be? What kind of a husband would I be if I didn't have people that had full permission to call me out? Right. I don't ever want that. So it's maybe less of a routine, but it's definitely, it's a behavioral thing, but yeah, it's part of my daily infrastructure for sure.
And we always say that nobody can hold anyone accountable. So you could have an accountability buddy and you could totally lie to him. And
right.
Even if you say, look, hey, you can check my phone here, you have access to my internet, you could use another one. You could have a hidden computer. I mean, if we're smart enough, we can ruin ourselves somehow. So at the end of the day, nobody's going to hold us accountable. It's really up to us. But when you surround yourself with people who love you and care for you, you are more likely to be the person you want to be. And when Sarah sees a trigger and all of a sudden she's like, okay, I got this. What's the first thing I want to do? I don't need someone to fix it for me, but I do like when someone cares enough about me to maybe pray with me or just remind me they love me. It's just another little data point in the journey of keeping the boat steady. I think it's cool that you are vulnerable with other people. Just never lose the reminder that they'll never be able to keep you safe.
Right.
It's always going to be your deal. Find new ways to constantly create new ways of accountability for yourself, independent of anybody else, because they'll never hold you accountable enough to keep you safe.
Well, just one piece, if I could just cheat a little bit and just add on one more piece. So I always think of this exoskeleton that like not just my addiction, but just my overall way of being for so many years. It built up this exoskeleton, right? And in a dark, depraved way, it sort of served me, it sort of protected me, but it was also just, it wasn't that I liked it. It wasn't that I enjoyed it. This was who I was. And so recovery, first and foremost, was stripping away that exoskeleton, which freaking hurt, right? It was not fun. It was not quick. It was not easy. And I mean, this is my personal belief, is every single day, multiple times every single day, often, I've got to continually rip away, because that exoskeleton is going to grow back. If I don't, it's not a passive thing. It's going to grow back unless I'm actively like ripping it away. I've got to rip it away. And that's pride, that's ego, that's these selfish thoughts, and just, choosing the selfish way, choosing to give into temptation, choosing to yell at my kids. And I'm gonna make those choices sometimes. Like I'm obviously not perfect, but every single time I can own it. I can, confess that. I can apologize. And, each time it's like I'm ripping off before it grows another layer. I can rip it off, and I don't ever have to let the exoskeleton grow back.
Good word.
Yeah, it's a powerful metaphor. Thank you, Logan, for sharing your story, because I think that maybe there aren't a lot of people talking about journeys like yours at this point, especially, providing men the support that they need here. So I'm not hearing about it. So thank you.
I'm not either. So good job, dude.
Great. Yeah, exactly. Great, Logan. So welcome to you, Holly.
Yeah. Well, first I want to thank everybody for being vulnerable and sharing really the reasons why you have your why, right? Everybody has got a story, and I love how everybody's empowered themselves to tell their story and make change in the world. Rituals for me have looked different in the last couple of years because of health. I have long COVID now, and I was perfectly healthy before all this happened. So everything changed, and my self-care became my health care. And some people say, well, you still need your self-care. But to me, self-care, it's the same to me, just because I can't, it's still for myself. It takes an hour and a half every other day. I get in my hyperbaric. I used to do every day. And I had a miracle story where I was able to have one in my home. So since I have a lung disease now, I get in there, and I know it's saving my lungs because they haven't gotten worse in 2.5 years. So
That's awesome.
I'm grateful. We just get up every day and keep doing what we can. The exercise looks different. My recent thing is a vibration plate, and that's really helping my nervous system and everything. I've learned how to do my weights on it and sit on it. Anyway, it literally shakes things up, and I like that. So those are the kind of things. But I think I do personality profiling and have for years. I'm really fascinated with it. And I think when you really, if you've never taken a test, we probably all have, but if you haven't, maybe figure out like what makes you tick. Why do you do the things the way you do? You understand you, first of all. It's a little easier to understand and have the patience with other people and understand why they're doing things the way they do, right? Takes the judgment out of it. Stephen Covey has his book talks about go into things with the end in mind. And so I always tend to create something big and then go back and figure it all out, right? And that's just how life is. But knowing you have that end result, knowing you have that big why are you doing things, what is your dream, and working towards those, make those rituals every day more doable to me when you have that reason of what you're working towards. And it sounds like all of you do, and I love that. So thank you.
That's lovely. That's really lovely. And I mean, it's a really great thing to, after the COVID thing, you are doing this, the weights and all. It's really, really a great part, I would say. So it's really, really great, I'd say. Yeah. So, Rachel.
Um, yeah, I think that for me, I do have my rituals or my morning routine, but I think more than that, it's two things. One, compassion, self-compassion, because I think, it's really easy, really anyone can create a goal or an account or like a ritual or say a non-negotiable, but to stay to them and be consistent and dedicated to it, I think requires a lot of compassion, because it's very easy to set it, it's not very easy to stick with it, because that's just not how our brains are wired. Our brains are actually wired to use as little energy as possible. They're really wired for survival, and that doesn't really go in line with, for example, a lot of the rituals that we'll create. So I think when you can be compassionate with yourself along the way, like, okay, so I missed my meditation this morning. I know it helps me, but I missed it. Okay, well, I'll do it. I'll start again tomorrow, and not beat ourselves up, because it's when we start to beat ourselves up that it makes it really hard to stay accountable. It's really hard to be on this path of taking care of yourself. And I think when we're not being compassionate with ourselves, we're likely also not as compassionate with other people. So I think like the root of all of it is, yeah, know yourself, got to have awareness first. I always say that, similar to what Robert said, like, got to know where you're going, right? What you want, but you got to have compassion and you got to have curiosity. So like you might decide, oh, my rituals are going to be, I think, movement and writing, for example, or whatever. Well, maybe that works for a while, and then all of a sudden it's just not fulfilling you as much. Be a scientist and try on something else.
Yeah.
I think we can get really rigid with all of this. And instead, when you can keep the mind of like a scientist, that we're always evolving, we're always changing, that, and with that idea of compassion, it's just so much easier to integrate this into your life. And I think that so often it's really easy to shame ourselves that we're failing even at our non-negotiables or whatever. And I mean this morning, for example, meditation has been a huge part of my life for the last 15, 20 years, and I know it helps me. It doesn't really do much while I'm doing it, in full honesty, but I know it has helped my nervous system dramatically. My anxiety is next to none now, and I think that's a huge part of it. But I could beat myself up for not doing it this morning, and I can be like, you know what, it's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna get back to it tomorrow, though, because I know it supports me.
I love the idea of being a scientist, though, because, we go on and listen to podcasts, we watch influencers, and we get ideas, right, for what my morning ritual should be, like the 10 habits of highly successful people, but their habits may not be the habits that work for you. So I love the idea of try it. And if it's not your thing, experiment, try something else until you find what is your thing.
And maybe it won't be your thing at this period in your life, right? Like, Emily's probably not going to be meditating 20 minutes twice a day with a toddler, let's be real, and a business and a full-time job. But, when she has her toddler becomes 20, like mine, maybe it will be.
Yeah.
We have different phases. So, yeah.
Totally.
Well, it's like that. Honestly, it makes me think of just how, with that text thread that I'm talked about earlier. I mean, a big thing that, again, this is how I operate, and it speaks to your idea of, being a scientist. Yeah. I like that term. I've never heard that term, used that way. Is I will frequently put something out there to the guys. Again, this is so far outside of sexual addiction recovery, but it's life. Is like, okay, here's this thing going on. Like I using my phone and being like addicted to my phone and just being on it too much. And so I put it out there. I'm like, hey, I recognize this as an issue, recognize this as a problem. I don't yet know exactly what correctives I'm going to implement. I don't know exactly what boundaries I'm going to, I don't know, but I'm putting it out there right now. I recognize the problem, and I will be intentional to work on it. And of course I have to, to Robert's point, I have to actually follow through with that. Right. But just instead of, because I can be a perfectionist, like probably a lot of us. And so like, okay, I got to have the perfect tools to attack this. It's like, well, maybe one day, but right now, let me just start and do something and try to get some traction and just pay attention to it. So I give myself permission to experiment lots of ways. I don't give myself permission to pretend it's not a problem, which is what I did for a lot of years, right?
Yeah.
I will say Emily will totally understand this because we're both in the same season of toddlerhood. My daughter just turned 2. But like when I get the urge to like, oh, why is she doing this? And I tell myself the same thing. Oh, she's a little scientist right now. She knocked that over because she's learning the laws of gravity. Like she's trying to figure out how this works. Like she's not intentionally destroying my house right now, right? She's a scientist. She's learning how life works around her. So I just love that idea of being scientists for everything.
I really try to apply it to everything. And, especially, I mean, I should say especially, but in addition in business, right? We're all, like, how can you just see everything that you do as it's a science experiment.
We're always learning.
And we're just, and you just evaluate, learn, tweak, move on, keep doing it.
Yes, exactly. Exploration is very much required because like for everyone it's different. So yeah, definitely these habits collectively create those balance and fulfilling routine that definitely supports the mental wellness for sure. So yeah, and it could be also I love to mention it could be also simple, like spending time with yourself or maybe spending time with your loved ones as well. So that can also be the one. So yeah, definitely. So I totally agree with the exploration part for sure. So we'll also quickly move to this, like, what motivated, I mean, how do you stay motivated, uh, rather I'd say so, and discipline in your pursuits during those challenging times?
I didn't
So
understand the question.
I'm saying, like, what according to you, or how you stay or feel motivated and disciplined when there are challenging paths, challenging times in your life?
Oh,
I think it's remembering it sounds cliche, but the why you do these things in the first place.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, unfortunately, the work that I do, I deal with a section of people who are at risk and in danger a lot of times. And, it can get scary and daunting, texting with a woman across the country who's physically trying to get out of a house right now and just texting and being like, okay, I don't know how you found me, but let's talk through this and make a plan. So I think my why is 100% what keeps me motivated. I told myself when I wrote my book, the idea was if one person felt like they could also talk now, right? Like, 'cause there's still a lot of shame and stigma around being a victim of domestic violence. And if one more person felt like they could have a conversation or they didn't feel alone, then I served my purpose. And unfortunately, in the area where I live right now, we've had a couple instances with domestic violence offenders, state legislation and legal policy not being on the side of the victim, and tragedy happening. And so lending my voice again to writing articles and publishing op-eds about, like we're a community of people. Domestic violence is not an isolated in the household only thing, right? It impacts our global economy, and I could go on about stuff like that for hours. But I feel like I don't really have a choice to stop, and I don't want to. So for me, it's less about finding the motivation; it's about finding the recharging moments. So doing what I need to do, dealing with the things, and then I'm going to go and watch Bluey with my daughter, and we're going to sing every song. Everyone with kids knows Bluey.
Yep.
I like Bluey.
I love Bluey. Yeah. like the one show I can stand watching with her. But we'll go do those things, right? We're gonna go take the dog for a walk. And so really finding the recharge moments really helps keep me going.
My wife and I
Okay.
watch Bluey without the kids sometimes.
It sometimes just stays on TV. I don't know why. It's like on all the time. Yeah.
I'll take it over Blippi.
Oh yeah.
Or Barney. That was what my kids
Oh
grew up
yeah.
with.
Oh geez.
I want to piggyback off that, Sarah, for a second. I think too, it's an exercise that someone taught me was when you're having a moment, you're feeling despair, then think about how long are you going to allow yourself to feel in that moment. So are you going to feel like this in 2 hours, 4 hours? I mean, we joke saying, my husband's like, knows you just need that time. It's like, I want to go to the movies in 3 hours. Or you think you're going to be feeling better in 3 hours so we can go to the movie? Just let it, if it's 10 minutes for you, feel all those emotions and then get back on track, right? Whatever that takes for you. If it's a day, it's a day, but whatever works for you, figure it out and feel through it and move on.
Yeah.
And I'll say, Sarah, what you mentioned, the idea of it's less about finding the motivation and more about the recharging. You put it into words exactly how I feel, which is, and that's not to say that there aren't some days that are more motivating or, that I wake up with the more filled cup or whatever, but I need to find a different word because the word that always comes to mind is obligation, which has a very negative connotation, I think. But like, this is an obligation. It's an honor to have this obligation, in my opinion, of I was given this gift that I can either take it for myself and put it under a bushel, or I can give it to other guys that need it. And for me, it's I always think about it. I was trapped in this cave for so many years. God put people in my life that helped me find a way out of that cave. So every day of my life, I am walking past potentially guys stuck in a cave. So, and of course I can't make them come out, but I can at least be like, hey, there is a way out, and I can work with you. I can show you that way out. And I mean, to go from, years laying in bed going, God, why did you create me? Why did you put me here when all I do is hurt people, to now, and I say this not out of hubris, but completely from gratitude. I know why God put me on this earth. Mm-hmm. And you're right that the recharging has to happen. And I, sometimes I feel like I've done a better job than others at figuring out some of those moments, but and the only other piece I would say is, because this definitely does help with the motivation, is just recognizing that every single choice I make, some are higher stakes than others, but every single choice I make, I can either feed old Logan or I can feed healthy Logan. And I really do believe like that is reality. And again, sometimes those decisions are very high stakes. Oftentimes they're a little bit lower, but so it's like, yeah, there are times where I feed old Logan, but even then it's like, and Rachel, you brought this up. It's like, okay, but I can get back on the horse and I can own that and recognize, but that's not who I made that choice, but that's not who I am. So what do I need to do to work on that, correct that, and then keep moving forward?
Well, I think one of the things that you just said, Logan, too, about, it being an honor, I've told myself that a lot too, because we're all people who are out there sharing a story, right? Because we've survived something. So my book is called Stronger Than That. And so we were stronger than something, right? Whatever that something was. And the fact that you were brave enough to share your story, and then someone was like, felt that they could reach out to you and confide in you and talk to you about this, like that I'm going through the same thing. Like, to me, I'm like, what an honor that like they trust us with that part of themselves, because, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this as well. A lot of times, like, we don't talk to people openly about this stuff. So the fact that they chose you to be a part of their journey forward is just such an honor. So that thought also helps motivate.
Lovely.
I don't know, Logan, if this is helpful, if you want a word to kind of put to it, but or anyone else, but in yoga, we call that your dharma. So your dharma is like your calling, your purpose. If you believe in a higher power of God, like why you're here on this earth. So I like that word for me really spoke to me as, oh, this is my dharma. This is really my calling.
That's true, Rachel. I totally agree with you. So all of you, I guess you heard about Gita, right? Uh,
I have.
Rachel, you
No,
have?
I
no.
have.
Okay. So Gita. So basically, Gita is like you have Bible. So we have Gita, the religious the book, you can say. So it says the Lord Krishna. The Lord Krishna has said the things. It's all mentioned what Lord Krishna has said during the time of Mahabharata. So Mahabharata in India, it from where this Gita form been written, so, and all the words been said by Lord Krishna. So there are the chapters, and one chapter is Dharma, which actually says like what you should, what you are here for, what's your purpose, and what you should do. So if there is a archer, or maybe there is a king. So for a king, uh, his his main aim or main dharma is to rule that area, to fight for their people. So this actually, I totally agree with you, Rachel. So it's yeah, it's true. Yeah, yeah. So Emily,
I think, to be honest, I'm really going to echo a lot of what's already been said, because when I was thinking about the question that you posed to us, Avik, I was realizing that for me, so much of it is not about what I am somebody who can overwork myself to the bone, and I will lose connection with my sense of purpose or motivation at that point because I just completely collapse. And that has been a pattern for a long time. It's something that I've become more and more aware of over years and years and years. And I've had a whole new relationship with it since having my daughter, and then, writing a book and getting back out into my medical practice and work and rebuilding a business. And um, realizing for me that sometimes the biggest motivation is just saying, I'm going to put some white space out there, and I'm going to give myself this gift of nothing to do except enjoying my kid, not getting upset or frustrated when she knocks that vase over, Sarah, or, when something happens, because she's just being a kid. And I think that I want to stay really conscious of the fact that I have this opportunity now to encourage her to have like really healthy, really strong nervous system development. And I do that by being healthy and having a healthy nervous system and healthy mental health. And that's about balance, right? So I have to model that for her. And so that is my day-to-day motivation. And I think on a bigger level, my motivation is having been through the experiences and the struggle that I went through, and learning how many women are suffering, and we're just not talking about it enough in the postpartum and the perinatal period. Like, I want to help those women who don't know where to turn or who don't have the resources. Maybe they are in a relationship or a situation where they're a sufferer of domestic violence and now they're pregnant and they're trying to figure out a way out. I want to be in whatever way I can an advocate for women who need me, whether like Holly, it's somebody who's dealing with a chronic disease or an addiction or whatever. So I would say I have motivation with a capital M and motivation with a little m, and that's what makes me smile on a day-to-day basis.
lovely, great. So thank you so much for sharing the details. And I'll quickly, before we wrap, will quickly request if you can share, because this from this word actually came to my mind, like uh, one small example, or maybe a story from your life experiences, which showcases that accountability actually helped you achieve uh, the goal which you wanted, the significant goal, or maybe overcoming an obstacle. So you can share.
Brother, you were breaking up a good bit while you were talking,
Yeah.
so I had a hard time getting that whole sentence. Can you
Yeah.
repeat that?
Oh, okay. Am I better right now?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Great. So, like, if you can share one small example, or maybe from life experiences, if you can share about where accountability actually played a crucial role in achieving uh, your goals in life, or maybe overcoming an obstacle.
Should the accountability guy start this one?
I was just thinking I should go last. That's not fair.
I'll jump in. I mean, this will be a quick one. Maybe this is not an obvious case of accountability, but it is. I mean, I talked about landmarks. This was one of those big landmarks in that God put in my life. So when I first met my mentor, Rick, I met him at a group that was kind of a little bit of a shallow recovery group, but it was what was available in the town that I was living in. And he quickly was like, "Hey, I think you need more than this group. I needed more than this group." And then he went on to tell me about a different group, Prodigals. But in that time, I was glad to meet him, and I appreciated that. But I remember telling him, I said, "Hey, Rick, could I get together with you for coffee every now and again?" And in my head, I'm like really putting myself out there. I am trying some stuff, like that's me being vulnerable. And Rick, as I said before, like he's my best friend outside of Carrie. He is like a dad to me. He's one of the most loving people that you will ever meet. And he looked at me dead in the eyes and he was like, "Logan, if you want to get together for coffee, I don't have time for you." And that hurt my feelings. That was offensive. But he quickly followed up. He was like, "If you want to seriously work on this issue, I will walk with you. But it's not going to be getting together for coffee twice a month. It's going to be hard work. You're not going to like it. You're probably not going to like me." And like that was not an exaggeration. There were times where I didn't like him. There were times where I didn't like the work, but it just, for me at least, and for my story, like I needed serious, intense work. I needed intense accountability. I did not need a buddy for coffee. That was not what I needed to get out of the hell that I had created.
No.
Great. So,
Well,
I mean,
let me throw in really quick on what he's talking about, because I was in a men's accountability group for years at my church back in California. And I remember meeting with these guys every month talking about, work was really tough, or the car's broken. It just seemed lame. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, one of the guys goes, "Oh, I'm getting divorced." And we're like, "Hey, wouldn't that have been something you bring up for the last 2 years we've been meeting?" And I just really realized that we like fake accountability, because we can like do something that makes us feel good and even looks good to the world, but it doesn't work for us. So you really have to choose what accountability looks like for you and what you need. And so when Kathy and I were deciding we needed to get out of debt, we hired a guy and paid him $500 every time he came to our house to look at our money and go, "Why do you spend money like this?" It was embarrassing, but we needed it. That's the thing. And there's something in nature called a trophic cascade. It has a ripple effect. And it's the one thing that is the most powerful thing you could do that will ripple affect everything. And for us, that one thing was having someone look at our money and going, "Geez, that's how you spend your money?" And so you have to, if you want real accountability, you know what that is. You know what that thing is. And if you want to invite real accountability, you have to lay that most vulnerable, ugly. It's like standing in front of a 360 mirror naked. There is nothing to hide. And you're just going to lay it out and say, "This is who I am." Then you're ready for accountability. I cut you off, Sarah.
no, I was just going to say too, I think, Logan, one thing that I've heard through your story though, is that you're very intentional about the people that you choose to be your accountability partners. I've had conversations with people, even with your friends, right? Like if I have an argument with my husband and I have friends that I'll talk to about it, and I'll have friends that I just don't, right? Because they're going to give me the worst advice.
Yeah.
Right. There's like fire people and water people. There's people who build the fire and people who throw water on it and help me like refine my center. Like, that Tom is the best thing that's ever happened to you. So like, this is actually a you problem right now. He's fine. Like talk you off the ledge rather than being like, "That's right, screw him, go do whatever you want to do," kind of thing. So, I applaud you for finding the right people, to have around you.
Good one.
Great. So, and anyone.
I can share this. This is what came up for me, and it certainly sounds a lot different than what everybody else has shared so far. But thinking about, for me, staying accountable to my own self-care routine, because it's so easy to let things slip. And I'm somebody who, I feel so much better after I exercise, and yet I'm a Taurus. I'm a inertia. Just, I get it. I'm into being comfortable. And so I can find a lot of reasons or excuses in the morning to not get up and move my body. But I think about being accountable to, like, my 8 or 12 hour self, like me 8 to 12 hours in the future. How am I going to feel if I don't do this now? And inevitably, I have done this enough. I have exercised enough and then not exercised enough to know that that future Emily is going to be really bummed out with me now if I don't exercise versus if I do. And same thing, if I want to have, like, stay up too late, have a couple glasses of wine with somebody, or maybe eat food that I know is not going to make me feel good, something that has that really delicious in the moment satisfaction, but that later, like, we might not feel so good after. And so for me, it's just being accountable to that future self.
That's good.
Yeah, Emily, I feel pretty much the same way. Like, accountability for me, and I think Robert kind of said this a little bit earlier, but for me, it's, of course I think it's important to have, a strong support system for yourself, for your nervous system, but the end of the day, it's on me. And I know when I do the things, especially meditate, especially move my body daily, I don't yell at my kids as much. I used to be a yeller. Hate to admit it, but my anxiety made me a pretty angry person. And I'm not that person anymore. Most people would probably say you're so chill, though. And that's not my default. That's a lot of work. And that's that every morning sitting on my ass, even though I don't feel doing much, knowing it is doing something.
Totally.
For me, it's probably, I would say, my
So,
calendar.
Holly, you want to share?
Yeah. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. For me, I would say it's my calendar that keeps me accountable. If it's not on there, I don't remember or I don't do it, right? And so it amazes me. Like, sometimes I'm a list person, so I love checking things off. But sometimes it's nice to, like, get rid of something on your calendar. It's like frees up this space and it feels so good. And it was interesting the last few weeks. My daughter had femur surgery 3 times in 3 weeks on femur. So
Wow.
she's a single mom and has a 14-year-old and a 9-month-old. So I've had a baby full time, and I raised 8 kids. They're all adults. My baby's almost 30 this year. So it's like, oh my gosh, my whole world changed. And it was interesting to see where the accountability meant to that calendar for me, because I had to take so many things off. I couldn't record podcasts. I couldn't do things while I had a baby here. I just never knew when he was going to nap, when he was going to cry, when he was going to want me. So it's just, to me, it's priorities, just figuring out, like, what really matters to you and what's your negotiables and your non-negotiables. And it's interesting when it's family, and I care most about family, how everything on that calendar didn't matter anymore. It was just like gone.
Yeah.
Exactly. Lovely. And I believe we have got a lot of things to learn today. And dear listeners, definitely you're gonna resonate and learn a lot of things from our daily life, which we do on a daily basis. We'll get to learn a lot of things from their experiences. And so with this, thank you so much for tuning into this enlightening episode of Healthy Waves, which is also a part of Healthy Man and Healthy Life. And we, as I mentioned, like, we have definitely journeyed through these inspiring stories and expert insights of our incredible guests, exploring the impact of daily habits, discipline, accountability on the personal development and the mental wellness. So uh, definitely, I would love to mention, like, the path to the freedom from the overload begins with the small and the consistent steps. So whether you are taking it on a daily routines, or kind of learning on your support network, or embracing that accountability, each action you take that brings you closer to a healthier and more balanced life. So, a huge thank to Robert, Polly, Emily, Sarah, Rachel, Logan for sharing your valuable experiences and wisdoms with all of us today. And your stories definitely remind us that no matter what the challenges we face, we have that power to transform our lives and achieve our goals. It's definitely so. So, dear listeners, if you have found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends, family, or someone who actually need these expert tips. So your support helps us continue bringing you more important topics and discussions like this we did today. So join us next time on Healthy Waves for more expert discussions and inspiring journeys. And until then, take care of yourself, stay committed to your growth, and keep riding with us on this healthy wave. So thank you so much.